The theme of this year's budget is building capacity for diversification and growth within a world of challenges. Joining us this morning as we continue budget talks right here on Now is the Honourable Brian Manning, Minister in the Ministry of Finance. Good morning, Minister.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence so early in the morning. I can only imagine how busy you and your team have been since, and well, before Monday as well. So let's jump straight into the conversation this morning. For you, what is the biggest takeaway of the budget?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the government has been working diligently to put the country back to work and to really stimulate this economy with both the large-scale projects, but also at the same time, taking care of the more vulnerable members of our society. We increased the minimum wage. We are creating a facility where small and medium enterprises can now, better access FX. We also strengthen the social safety net. So we are growing our ability and capacity to generate more revenues, to increase our GDP, and at the same time protecting some of the persons who may be at the lower rungs of our labor force. As you had mentioned earlier, the largest slice of the budget pie went to education, and that's to ensure that our young people have a fighting chance at upward mobility as adults and as members of our workforce.
Let's go straight into that education point. Speaking, of course, about grants and so much more and the allotment itself, what do you think is going to be one of the first benefits we're going to see from that in our nation?
Yes, our young people, as I said, we have to give our young people an opportunity at upward mobility. We have to give them a fighting chance. And they have to do their part and to actually discipline themselves and focus on the opportunities that they're being given. The $1,000 book grant was a big one in the Ministry of Finance, and Minister Imbert was extremely resolute about offering that grant so that even the most vulnerable children in our country can afford to purchase school books, school supplies, and so on. The streamlining of the textbook system is something else that parents have been crying out about, not just parents, but also educators. That, I don't know if some of you are old enough, but when I was growing up, I could always hand down my textbooks to my younger brother who was coming up behind me. In a system where we have these textbooks changing every year, the hand-down process just was not occurring. And parents, of course, were incurring huge costs because of it. So the government has decided to clamp down on that system. So there's a lot in the budget that is designed to benefit our young people and to give them the opportunity to educate themselves and become meaningful members of our society and workforce.
Agreed. Not just benefiting young people, but many have cited this budget that was read on Monday as a budget for everybody. Now, we've seen people focusing, of course, on education, national security, which we definitely need to get to this morning in this conversation, yes, agriculture and more. What other points would you say are critical to displaying that this is definitely a budget for everybody for the fiscal year 2024?
Yes, I heard some people speaking about crime not being important to the government, but that certainly is not true, and that's certainly not what you saw in this budget. It's a multi-pronged approach. We of course use education to ensure that less of our young people fall through the cracks within our workforce and education system. We are focusing on large-scale projects so that they can mop up some of the unemployment within our workforce, and then at the same time we're also strengthening national security by hiring more police officers, by ensuring that they have the vehicles that they need to conduct their duties so that people of Trinidad and Tobago can feel safer. So it's not just about putting more people in prison. We're also financing education and also some of the I would say, the trade programs like MIC, YTEP, and the whole alphabet soup of assistance programs for young people. And maybe sometimes not be so young, if you're not so young, to educate yourselves and to learn a trade and to become a viable member of society so that crime would be less of a temptation for some.
I couldn't agree with you more. Now, just going back, of course, to that point of almost tripling, if I'm not mistaken, tripling the intake of those candidates for the police service. How do you think that is going to affect our current crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago in the long run, let's say?
Yes, we clearly need more police officers within our police service. That is something that was made abundantly clear by the Minister of National Security and also by the Commissioner of Police. We need more persons on patrol. It is also going to create employment because there are quite a few people out there who wanted to become part of the police service and have not had that opportunity previously. But as I said earlier, it's just part of a multi-pronged approach in terms of dealing with the crime situation. We can't live in a police state where we just try to lock up everyone. We have to ensure that there are also opportunities for persons to do the right thing in the first place. And that is what is being done by creating jobs, creating opportunities, offering more educational opportunities, stimulating more growth and opportunities for employment by working with SMEs so that we can help them grow. In the past few budgets, if we take a look, we have done quite a bit at the Ministry of Finance to really encourage small and medium enterprises in Trinidad and Tobago, because we understand if we create more employers, then we would be doing something in terms of something significant in terms of dealing with the unemployment in Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, mentioning unemployment, of course, one of the things that goes hand in hand is something that many have been speaking of, which is the raise in minimum wage going up to $20.50 per hour. Now, some have said that this is the sweet spot, that spot in the middle where businesses are going to be able to continue to thrive and those who are employed are going to, of course, be able to sustain themselves in a far more sufficient manner. What are your thoughts on this?
We've had quite a bit of debate on exactly where the minimum wage should have been moved to, but this government, of course, decided that the minimum wage, we agreed that it was too low, that it had to be raised. The only question then was how far or how high do we raise the minimum wage? You have to understand, in any economy, it's a balancing act. If you raise the minimum wage too high, you're going to create unemployment, you're also going to create inflation within your economy. If it's too low, then it's not going to have the kind of effect that you want in terms of assisting persons at the lowest rung of our labor force. We did a lot of research, spoke with many persons within the business community, also within the trade union movement, and decided that the number where we are now is exactly what the best we could do at this point in time. Any increase in the minimum wage has to be done gradually. It's a balancing act. It's challenging, but we feel very comfortable with this rate right now. We think that it's going to benefit a lot of people, especially in terms of the imported inflation that we've seen because of the supply chain issues in the United States and other parts of the OECD countries coming out of the COVID crisis. So we expect the more vulnerable persons within our labor force to be a bit more comfortable financially going forward.
Definitely. Now, as you mentioned, the theme of gradually, another thing that everybody's been talking about is property tax, which we are looking at being implemented in 2024. Now, two things in particular. The minister did reiterate that a law will be made to ensure that the monies from property tax, of course, are used properly, for want of a better expression. Can you expound on that a little bit, but also can you share with us how the implementation of property tax is going to affect our country?
Yes, our property taxes will be used to really benefit local government. We needed to have more funding that was dedicated towards local government and delivery of goods and services at the municipal level in Trinidad and Tobago. Property taxes, and we decided to use property taxes as is done in many places around the world, because property owners are the ones that benefit the most from local government goods and services. So we acquire these property taxes from various owners around the country, and then they are used to be dedicated towards delivering roads, drainage, retaining walls, collection of garbage, eventually a national recycling program, also for other services that come from whether it's your city corporation, borough corporation, or what may have you. It's a similar structure to what is being done in Tobago in the THA, and that has worked wonders. If you've been to Tobago, you would have seen how extremely clean and well kept the country is, and that comes from having that dedicated funding towards these local government services. In any challenging situation, like we had a global health crisis, a lot of our funding was diverted away from local government services so that we could finance paying our public servants, so that we could finance the alternative healthcare system. And that, of course, allowed many of our roads and other services to collapse during that period. And we're now working to ensure that every road in Trinidad and Tobago is paved, every drain is repaired. But with this new system, that will not happen. The funding that is collected from property taxes will be dedicated to local government issues and cannot be used for anything else. So that should bring great comfort to the people and homeowners of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you for that. Now let's talk about healthcare for a moment and the allocation for healthcare for the fiscal year 2024. What are some of the main points that have stuck out to you, and what are the benefits going to be for Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, well, we want to ensure that healthcare is available and accessible to everyone in Trinidad and Tobago. The Minister of Health, in his presentation next week, will go into depth in terms of exactly how that money is going to be shared. One of the major points that we're doing is dealing with the oncology center in San Fernando, building hospitals, ensuring that the ones that are in progress are completed, and also a comprehensive program in terms of dealing with lifestyle illnesses in Trinidad and Tobago. The Minister of Health is extremely passionate about that particular issue, and he believes that we could dramatically reduce the spending on healthcare in Trinidad and Tobago if we decided to deal with the non-communicable diseases and different lifestyle illnesses that we face here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, flowing from healthy lifestyle, of course, is food, something that is critical to the nation and, of course, to the world as well. Do you think that making the agricultural sector tax-free, completely tax-free, is going to aid the food import bill and impact it in general?
Yes, we are stimulating the agricultural sector. We want to ensure that those persons who would like to go into agriculture are incentivized. During the COVID crisis, the government had pushed persons to become a lot more self-sufficient in terms of growing our own food, also in buying local from our local farmers. Our farmers have had a challenging time in terms of the weather. There was mass flooding about a year or two ago, which would have severely affected our agricultural sector. There's pradia larceny, the other major issues involved in the agricultural sector in Trinidad and Tobago. This additional funding and making things tax-free and therefore cheaper for farmers, we hope will incentivize a growth, and those persons who are considering getting into the agricultural sector would be incentivized to do so. Sometimes farming can be a very challenging business to be in, and a lot of people will choose maybe something easier or something else to do. We want to ensure that persons who are truly passionate about farming have an opportunity to get involved and to do exactly what they love to do, so that we can benefit here in Trinidad and Tobago from lower food prices and not endure some of the imported food inflation that we've seen in the past few years.
Minister, another thing that also has been at the forefront of conversation on the streets is the tourism and culture conversation. Many felt as though it was just a bit skimmed across when it came to the reading of the budget on Monday. Understandably, we do take into consideration that there will be, further debates and conversation that takes place. But for now, what would you have to say to those who are a bit concerned about where the budget stands on culture in particular?
Yes, the Minister of Finance could not have gone into every detail of expenditure in every ministry. Or instead of a 5-hour budget, we would have had a 10-hour budget, which I'm sure no one would have appreciated. So we're going to hear more about what's happening going forward in tourism from the Minister of Tourism next week. But we're expecting more or larger cruise ship arrivals. More tourists are coming to Trinidad and Tobago next year. We anticipate all of that. Persons are traveling more safely, freely, going forward, coming out of the COVID crisis. A lot of people feel safer traveling to Trinidad and Tobago, and the Minister of Tourism and others in the government have been doing quite a bit to ensure that brand TNT is something that is prominent in countries where persons would want to enjoy what it is we offer here in Tobago. We have sun, sea, sand, ecotourism. In Trinidad, we offer more business tourism, and also the FET product that we have here that we are world famous for. We have Carnival coming up soon. We think it's going to be a bumper Carnival season, and we're going to see a lot of growth in the tourism sector going forward.
As we discussed earlier on the show, we are looking forward to a great increase in foot traffic for the cruise ship season of 2023 into 2024. Now let's go across to the energy sector for a quick moment. Also something that many are talking about. What are your key takeaways from the budget on Monday for the energy sector, and what can we look forward to as a nation?
Yeah, we've incentivized a lot more deep water drilling. We are a mature energy province. We have been involved in the energy industry for over 100 years. We decided that it's time to offer more incentives to deep water drilling in Trinidad and Tobago going forward. There's also the ratification of the various deals for the Dragon Field 1, which is we share with Venezuela. Also the Loren Manatee Field, which we also share with Venezuela. These are extremely large gas deposits, and combined, we expect that those reservoirs will have about 15 trillion cubic feet of gas. And that's something that's should be extremely exciting for Trinidad and Tobago going forward, because we need gas to keep our economy going. We are one of the few countries within this region that have liquefied natural gas assets, and we intend to use those assets to really be of benefit to our partners within the region. That include our energy partners. That would include Venezuela, Suriname, and Guyana. So there's a lot of excitement taking place within the energy sector right now. We've ratified extremely important deals between us and our energy partners within the region. Also, we've added incentives to stimulate more exploration and discovery of oil and gas going forward, especially in the deep water sectors of our geography. So that's something that should help stabilize our economy in multiple ways, and not least of all, it should stabilize our economy.
Would it be fair to say that with this budget, we can look forward to seeing our economy stabilize further on the whole?
Yes, and that is exactly what the Minister of Finance has been working to do. Over the past 15 years, we have encountered several severe challenges, and that's just to give you context in terms of what it is we have faced in terms of our economy under the Ministry of Finance. In 2008, you remember, we had the global financial crisis. From 2014 to 2016, we had the sharpest downturn in energy prices since World War II. And you have to remember, we are an energy economy. In 2020, of course, we had a global health crisis. In spite of all of that, Trinidad and Tobago remains the only investment-grade country in all of CARICOM. We remain the only country in this region that is also not in the hands of the IMF. And I'm not sure if people understand what that means. If we had to borrow money from the IMF, which is the lender of last resort, it would mean an immediate devaluation of our currency. It would also mean we would have to shed maybe possibly 20, 30% of persons employed in our public service. It would also mean that our economic decisions would have to be made at the IMF headquarters in Washington, D.C. In Trinidad and Tobago, our economic decisions are still being made here at Whitehall and at the cabinet level, so that we are still in control of our economy. In spite of all that we have faced, the Minister of Finance, Ministry of Finance, and this government have maintained this economy on an even keel. We do have our challenges, but we are not nearly in the situation that many of our peers in the region have found themselves.
Minister, another thing that also has been touched on, of course, is the conversation of Tobago, who is set to receive full allocation. However, we have seen a little bit of pushback and perhaps not the most forthcoming conversation about that, in addition to, of course, those additional allotments from state enterprises. What are your thoughts on that, and how do you see Tobago's allocation moving forward for 2024 as a benefit to the island?
Yes, Tobago's allocation is in line with what they have been receiving for the past few years. You have to also understand that what you see as the direct allocation in the budget is not the only allocation that Tobago will receive. Almost every government ministry has an allocation that will be spent in Tobago. So it's not just what they receive for development programs or recurrent expenditure. There's also other expenditure that's going to take place in Tobago, coming from the Ministry of Tourism, Works and Transport, and across the other ministries that do work in Tobago. You have to remember, we are still a Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Every ministry will have a portion of their funds that are designed to continue and complete projects in the sister isle.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for being with us on the show this morning, Minister. Looking forward to having you back on the show again soon for a continued conversation.
Thank you so much. Please enjoy your day at Trinidad and Tobago. And I would ask everyone to please read through the budget, look at the details and summaries you'll see in the media going forward so that you will not be misinformed or uninformed. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
That was the Honourable Brian Manning, Minister in the Ministry of Finance, continuing the budget conversation on Now. Stay tuned. There's more coming up on the Now Morning Show that you do not want to miss.